Hey everybody.
Hey
Hey Bilal.
everyone. Hello, hello. It's been a while.
Yes, it's good to see you back.
Yeah,
Last
yeah.
week
I've
it
been,
was
yeah, I was on vacation. I've been gone to Europe for a couple of weeks and just coming back and resettling. So I'm sure that, like we joked about like how 2 weeks is like a year in AI world, and it does feel like that to a certain extent. A lot of
right.
development. So we have a lot to, I guess, catch up on. How are you
Last two
doing?
weeks, no, I'm doing well. Yeah, really doing well. The last 2 weeks have been crazy. This week has been crazy.
Oh, yeah,
In the last 2 weeks
especially
there's been
this week.
things 11 Labs music. We got 11 Labs music, we got all these new video models, we got all these new text models, LLMs today, GPT-5, Genie 3, um, Runway, Ideogram. Like the last 2 weeks have been crazy, this week especially. I'm excited to talk about it all.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Where do you want to start? Let's just dive in.
so I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about, well, we just got off of this right now. GPT-5, you know,
Mm-hmm.
GPT-5 came out today. Super
Yeah,
cool.
well, as of 15 minutes ago. This is
As of
like very
15 minutes
fresh.
ago. Fresh news. I think the live stream's still going on right now. This is a creative like media type of podcast, so we're not going to dive into it too much, I think. But from a first look, it seems like it's a unified model. It's going to be accessible for everybody in ChatGPT, so all free users are going to be able to get it. You don't have to necessarily switch between O3 and 4.0 for thinking and non-thinking. So it'll reason as much as it needs to solve a problem,
Mm,
supposedly. And that's cool because I still know a lot of people from a UX perspective. People are still don't understand what model to use. When is O3 better than O40? And it's
hmm.
just like, okay, good. Simplified modeling. Hopefully you know, every lab goes towards this. It's just like one model. That's the thing. And developers maybe have more control in the API. But
Hmm.
like for a consumer product, it's like they don't want to hide all that stuff away. They just want to
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
something, the question.
Yeah, I think this is where everyone's gonna have like these hybrid models where it just does thinking or non-thinking under the hood, and it likely will be a spectrum. Like you said, the developers have more control. I think I actually like how Google exposed this to us. They actually give us multiple options. One is like I think low, medium, high, which is like how much of a thinking it should do. But then also it has this thing called the thinking budget, which I really like because then you can just set a ceiling like I want max 10,000 tokens, right? Which is I mean, it's good to just be like, all right, let's just give it a ceiling so it doesn't go too crazy, but then, you give it enough of a range to go from thinking a little bit to a lot. So I imagine OpenAI will have similar parameters. And obviously for ChatGPT and stuff, it'll be the auto mode just kind of figures it out, which, will be good enough for 99% of everyday tasks.
Right, right. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, hybrid reasoning, hybrid thinking budgets, all super cool.
Yeah.
So if you're out there, check out GPT-5. It's supposed to be in ChatGPT
Yeah, and
today.
the same, right? They have the base model, mini and nano. I guess they're doing the three shirt sizes. Think that's the approach, which is cool.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
and
totally.
there's another model like with the flex as well now. So there's base, mini, nano, but then you have flex, which is for a little slower response time, you actually get 50% off pricing, which
Right.
is
And that's
pretty
for
cool.
developers too. So it's like
Right,
if
right.
you're not a developer, like you'll have like your minis and your nano and your regular models, you have your batch processing, you have flex processing. Now there is like a thinking budget, it looks like, in GPT-5. So not I don't know if there's a budget, there's a new model parameter. It's like specify thinking or not, or how much thinking. I don't know. I didn't look to the API to see, but that's cool. If you're a developer listening to this, maybe you are, but a lot of standard stuff, things that you kind of came to expect with other model providers.
Yeah, yeah,
Hopefully good.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I think it's super cool. I've said this before. I think OpenAI's strength is as a consumer company, and their application, they've ChatGPT, I think is pretty, they've like built it out. They've had time to build it out. There's so much functionality, and it's not just about the model. It's about like the tool calling and stuff. And so in ChatGPT, like I saw some examples where you can throw in a spreadsheet or whatever, it'll create a graph or whatever, right? Using that. So those kind of tools, I feel like, are definitely gonna get so much better. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how with this smarter model plus the great UI that ChatGPT has, like, can actually replace tasks like data analysis or market research and stuff like that. I imagine those kind of things will just get exponentially better with this.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and then the last thing I think I want to mention too, we'll have to see if this is true. I know they spent a lot of time in the live stream today talking about healthcare and like medical professionals and hallucinations. At least if the graphs, the benchmarks that they demonstrated, a significant reduction in falsifying like confidence on answering, and it will like be much better at adhering to truth supposedly, and so like that, and not like in complicated domains where it'll just probably do. It seems like they trained it, spent a lot of effort on making sure that in PhD law medicine that's just going to do better in sort of minimizing hallucinations, and it's really been tuned on that. So we'll see if that's true,
Yeah, yeah.
but it'd be cool.
I feel like people like the most impressed they've been before this was O3 Pro, right? With like the deep research and stuff. So they clearly have a great flow set up for citations and stuff. And I wonder how that it's going to work with GPT-5. Will we just have GPT-5 deep research and that's O3 Pro basically, like, doing that? It'll be interesting to see how those that long run thing works.
And I'll also be interested too, just in like, because O 04 and O 03 were trained to like use web search in their thinking process. And so it'll like, you
Mm,
don't have to click on the web search. So it has access to the internet and it'll go out and like pull information from the internet as part of its reasoning. So I would expect that to still happen and pull that stuff in as citations. But like in addition, kind of have the nuanced ability to, just really reflect on content and hopefully just provide better answers and things. So, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
we'll see.
No, it's
I'm
super
excited to
interesting.
get my hands on it.
Yeah, and one last feature I guess I'll mention I just saw was the context window has gone up now. It's
Really?
400,000 tokens for the base model, but it's 256K for the mini and nano. And I think if I
Oh,
remember correctly, it was 128 before. So yeah, I mean that's
hmm.
getting up there now. I feel like Gemini has been the only one, as far as I know, that that has 1 to 2 million context. All the others were kind of stuck at like one to while. So on if you're throwing like the whole Harry Potter book series or something in there, that's in, opens up use cases. So very cool.
Totally, totally. Um,
And yeah, I mean it's super interesting. It's funny, like I don't know if I've talked about it in this way, but I think of it, right, writer's block. Writer's blocks, like you don't get any ideas and stuff. And I feel like with these models, it's writer's block on servers where I feel like it's like if you can do anything at all, like imagine having the power to do anything, and then all you can think about is a to-do list or something stupid. Like I mean, I'm exaggerating, but sometimes I feel like I'm like I should be doing more with these models. Like I have this power, but I'm just not utilizing it in the right way. So it's
totally.
yeah,
No, it's very
so
true.
cool.
That's why I like. I think that's a phenomenon with humans, and it's like you need that starter fuel to kind of those suggestions. Suggestions. When Google added suggestions to your search queries, query volume went up. People
Yeah,
searched more. Same with ChatGPT. That's why, like, when you're typing on ChatGPT, it'll show like a list of auto completions of queries or prompts that you might be asking. It just sparks that innovation. Same thing with Jellypot. I mean, like that's what we do. Like
yeah,
we
yeah.
had auto completions and suggestions all the time.
Right, but you're right. That starter fuel has become, it's always been important. Like high agency has always been important. I feel like it separates like the people who do a lot of stuff and people who don't do anything. But it's just become this like, and I wonder if that's what it converges to, where people who just have initiative versus people who don't. Like, and there's always been, my read has always been that a small portion of the population actually does actually things on their own. Most people are
Hmm.
just kind of like live in a dreamlike state. And I
Right.
think that'll continue to be, but it'll just be exaggerated, like,
Totally.
call it the
It'd be-
Matrix or whatever. Like, it's just like,
right.
so so if anyone's listening, you want, if you're the type of person to take the red pill, versus the blue pill,
For sure.
this is the
100%.
GPT-5, moment, go there, build shit,
Yeah.
write cool shit, produce amazing content, podcasts, use Jellypot, create
Yeah.
amazing stuff.
Write some code. I mean, like really, like
Yeah.
write some code. If you or that type of person, like I want to build a business, I just don't know how to code it. There's no excuse anymore. There really is
Yeah.
none. I
There's
mean,
a
you can have a prototype out there even before GPT-5, lovable, Replit agent, these tools, like it's bolt.new, there's no excuse anymore. So get out, get off your ass, go and actually take the initiative and make your dreams a reality. There you go. End the podcast right there.
there you go, boom. That's all I want to say.
um, but okay, cool, cool. So we talked about GPT-5. There's a few other things. One thing I want to touch upon real quick. The thing I'm most excited about, Genie 3, but before that, ElevenLabs music. I know you mentioned it. Music models are something that are super cool. We have Suno, not API. So Suno is just like, I think it was previously maybe Microsoft backed or Microsoft sub project that spun out.
Oh,
I
really?
thought
I didn't know
I
that.
thought there was some relationship there. I might be completely wrong, so don't quote me on it. Suno is cool. ElevenLabs music. I haven't got around to play with it. But I think maybe you have, or if you've.
I have, and it's amazing. So I just kind of backing up kind of history of the text to music. Basically, there's like two big players in the scene. There's Suno. Suno is the big one, and then UDO is, I feel like it's good. It's not quite Suno level, but it's right up there. And they're kind of like they release models and stuff, which kind of edges the model, but then the other guy releases another model. So that's like the OpenAI versus Anthropic fight happening there. Uh, and that they've been kind of the big players for a while, and Suno is kind of the leader. But it's something interesting happened last year. I think it's been last year or like 18 months ago. ElevenLabs out of the blue just drops a song on Twitter. It goes viral. And at that time it was like head and shoulders above like the other ones. Like I'm not an audiophile and stuff, but I talked to a couple of my friends who are, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And then we were like, wow, so ElevenLabs coming into the music scene, which I guess, I'm not privy to how to, a lot of TTS training, but I imagine there's some skill overlap. So that's why the guys were like, hey, we can train songs as well. So why not?
Mhm.
But then curiously, they put out the song and then nothing happens. Kind of like they talked about it for a while and then they shut up. And I think my hypothesis was it was copyright. Like people were, and around that time, Suno got sued as well. I think Udio had some lawsuits because all the companies were like, what the fuck,
Right,
like especially the, like the music labels and stuff, they are notorious for copyright lawsuits and
right,
stuff, and they've cut their teeth on Napster and the streaming days. They're, so they
right.
they know like how to clamp down on this. So I think it spooked ElevenLabs, their investors. They backed off. Which is why, I mean, one of the big things before we even get to quality is like this music, they did it in collaboration with the music labels. So they
Mm,
struck a deal. And so if you look at the fine print, this is like actually has, the music labels have signed off on this. So I'm guessing there's
right.
some rev share thing or something, or some agreement under the hood. So
Mm,
that every time you create a song or something, they get some portion of it. So
very
that's
cool.
great. So that if you're trying to build a business off it, I think that puts you on solid footing because your ElevenLabs won't like shut down the service like tomorrow because they get sued or something. So
Right.
it's much more stable ground. So that's key. And then the music, just like last year, it's still good. And compared to Suno and Udio, I think they definitely have an edge on that. So very interesting. And I played around with it, and the quality was really cool. The way they do it is, which is very interesting, is uh, Suno and Udio, what they do is you put in a prompt, or you can even put in your custom lyrics, they generate the whole song. What a Level App does is it breaks it into segments. So it'll give you, this is the intro. This is like the acapella version where the guy starts
Mm,
talking and then the audience comes in. And so it breaks it into these logical hooks, pieces of a song, which I think makes sense because, when you create a song as an artist, you break it up into pieces. You're like, this is when the chorus is going to come in. This is when something's going to happen. And you can like edit that piece then. It was so cool because I was actually able to create a live recording. So I actually did a song
mm.
where a female artist was singing, but then the crowd starts chanting with the
Oh,
artist. And I was like,
right,
whoa. And it sounded like, like they were like at a concert, it's like Adele like, and the crowd is chanting with the artist. And I'm like, holy shit, this is
right.
amazing. Because you can like,
That's
recreate like
cool.
experiences now, like like that. So I think I can see someone taking, if we've talked about Hedra before, Hedra actually posted portraits of 11 Lab songs with this creator. But I think we're not too far away from having, and K-pop is ahead of this. They actually have AI members, but you're gonna see full celebrities, Instagram pages, everything. They're basically celebrities. They have albums out. They are having concerts where you can join Fortnite style, probably
Mm,
having like thousands of people with your an avatar VR experience maybe of a band. Think like Gorillas, but on steroids, and
Right.
that's gonna be insane. So I think this is
Totally.
coming. It's going to be huge. I don't want to ramble too much on it, but last thing I'll say is another one of the biggest Netflix's hits of the last few months has been this Korean movie. I don't know if you
Right.
saw, but it was a musical they put out. It's basically Korean band members who have supernatural powers, something stupid. But the album went viral. It became number one on Netflix and on YouTube. It has millions of views. So clearly, if you can tie a good story with the because that's what's missing. Don't just pump out a random song. Actually build a brand, a persona, then build a backstory. And then if you can give an experience like a crowd concert or something, whoa, that's like gold. And now we have the pieces for it. And some DJ, like, 10 years ago, like the guy who figured out Lo-Fi Girl, he literally was some broke ass Swedish DJ. He was like, what if I take this like lo-fi GIF and put out like good lo-fi chill songs? You know,
Totally.
some guy is gonna figure out in his basement. He's gonna like, all right, I have a musical taste. I'm gonna build out like a metal like album or whatever. I'm gonna build out this. I'm gonna create this, generate this character, and then I'm gonna create a backstory like a Daft Punk, Interstellar type, something. And a
Totally.
movie experience is gonna be amazing. Yeah.
Do you know, is there like a duration on ElevenLabs, like on the music? Like, can you do 1 minute,
You
10
can
minutes,
do 30 seconds. You can do up to 4 minutes. I think you can go
minutes?
longer. I'm sure there's like some cap, but
Interesting.
they basically just charge you credits and stuff. I think 4 minutes might be the max. And there's
Gotcha.
an auto version where you can say, okay, just give me the logical
Very cool.
something.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of AI generated music on
Hmm.
YouTube recently, and it's actually really
Hmm.
good. Like, you can really curate playlists of different moods. There's this one channel called Roti, ROTI, and they have like subtle, non-lyrical, like coffee house, but energetic coffee house. That's kind of great
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
deep work. That stuff's been great. Like, I love
Oh,
it.
absolutely. I
And
mean, if you think
so,
about it, the lo-fi instrumental music is the first to go, right? Because it's easy, it's generic, and and then obviously lyrics and stuff that's a little harder because it's not just about random lyrics. You need to like have something that
totally.
hits. So actually, Spotify, I remember there was an article last year or something. Spotify is quietly rolling out lo-fi instrumental because for them, if you think about it, their biggest cost is artists. That's
Mm,
been the biggest issue they've had.
right.
And one of the reasons Spotify, I think stock price is like went up is stuff because I think they're gonna go on all in on AI generated music and so get away with the headaches of, these artists
Right.
who are always demanding more money, and justifiably it's their music. They should,
Right. No, it's
so
super interesting. Yeah, like Spotify entering that game. It's always a question when you're a marketplace or like a platform that you rely on user generated content or submitted content. It's like you have a question, do you also enter the space of generating yourself, like for Jellypod? I mean, do we enter the space of creating our own podcasts?
yeah.
Spotify, like, so it's a really interesting question. And when it comes to music, like, I'm super excited about like people that are able to just communicate and the feeling like Rick Rubin, very famous. He's asked like, what sort of technical, like,
Yeah,
what
he just
talent do you
knows.
have?
Right.
He's just like,
Yeah.
no, I'm able to explain what I feel well, and that's what he's
Yeah.
paid
Yeah.
to be the president of, what is he, UMG or something? I forget.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds stupid,
Yeah,
but hey, I mean, that guy's got talent. If you actually look at his clip, I remember there's this funny viral clip of him. He actually went to Jay-Z when he was doing 99 Problems, and he goes, "What if you start with an acapella?" And he actually
right.
that was Rick Rubin. Like he gave him the idea, and Jay-Z was getting his haircut. He goes, "That's fire. That's fire. Yeah, let's do it." So yeah.
That's sick.
So yeah,
That's
taste
sick.
taste is important.
The other thing also, like, you ever hear about like Melon? Like Melon, like it's like a music group. It's kind of like Lo-Fi Girl. I think it's earlier than a Lo-Fi Girl, but it was Happy Fruits or Happy Melons. Happy Melon maybe like music. And pretty much they were covers of songs in different genres. So you take like some pop song that's just like very poppy, whatever, and they'd make like a version of it that's more jazzy or different voice, like a female voice to male voice, and then just different, complete like a cover of that.
Hmm.
And they just made covers of every single hit song, and they got so many listens because they just blew up because covers are fair use. So you can just
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
cover. I wonder, I mean, like, just take AI. make a cover of
Right.
like the best songs ever in every sort of
Yeah, yeah.
hard rock, metal, lo-fi, acoustic, like just make covers of every single song out there and just put them
Right.
like you'll gain like $1 million right there, maybe.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Depending on the right sound and stuff. And it'll be so interesting to see how music industry evolves, right? I mean, it's like I think it's even a bigger moment than when Napster streaming happened. Everyone was
Totally.
like, "That's
I
the death
agree.
of music," but it was actually, it actually made it even more easy for artists to put their songs out with the SoundCloud, etc. But so I feel like it'll be the same. I actually think 99.9% of people, well, they're like, "Oh, what if I take a Jimi Hendrix song and like cover it?" And some of them will be hit, but most of them will be garbage. And then somebody will be like, next Cardi B or whatever, like, they'll be like, okay, I'm interested in the new sound, right? Because there's always a new sound. We're always looking for the new beat. Somebody
Hmm.
who has that will figure it out. I think the difference will be they'll put out a song or something, and within like minutes, people will be copying that. So how do you give someone an incentive? I feel like this is why we'll probably come some model where we're like, all right, I know I'm going to put out song, I know I'm going to get copied. So what I'm going to do is put it out and give permission to everyone to copy, but I get royalties or something like that. So you'll have people searching for the new hit, the new wave, and then they'll put it out there with the understanding that I'm going to have a small window where I get to be the unique new voice. And then
Hmm.
it just becomes generic. And then it starts all over again. It's like a shrinking where maybe the Beatles got 10 years or some 5 years or whatever, and then people figured it out. The Beach Boys got whatever 2 years or whatever, and now it'll be like minutes, maybe the new Beatles or the new Swift, like it'll be like 15 minutes where like, oh my God, have you heard that? And then we move on, right? So it's like we get
Yeah,
just get
15 minutes of
faster.
fame.
So right,
Right.
so
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. Like at the end of the day, I mentioned this in previous episodes, and I think the biggest thing that AI enables is a divergence between luxury and I don't know what the word would be, but like basic experiences, or
mm,
it enables more people on the low end of the spectrum to have access to, and to do things that they would never have done originally. Music, it's going to enable more people to make music. The people at the high end, like the artists that have musical talent that are performing on the shows, those things are going to become more valuable because as everybody can enter as the threshold to enter in music, into art, into cooking, like all these things, it's going to lower that barrier to entry, enabling more people to enter into a creative industry. But on the high end, the experience of, going to a concert, being like listening to Coldplay at the Rose Bowl, or going
yeah,
to a nice
preferably
restaurant
with your
where
spouse.
with your spouse. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a
Yeah,
divergence, and I think it's
yeah,
good. It's healthy because it enables more people to enter the game, but because more people enter the game, there's more competition, and the best rise to the top. And so that's that.
yeah, yeah. I 100%. We've talked about the clay pot analogy where make you take one class gets to make as many clay pots as possible. The other one makes one good clay pot, and the quantity always beats the quality because you just get so many iterations. And I think it'll happen with songs. It's already happened with Netflix. Like there used to be in the 60s, there were three channels, CBS, NBS, whatever, and there were
Mhm.
only limited number of shows. And then Netflix happened, and now there's thousands of shows. And objectively, the quality of the shows now is way better. Now the average show is shittier than the one in the 60s, but the top 10%, 5% shows are way better than the top
Right.
5, 10% of shows 50 years ago. And
Totally.
you'll see the same thing. The average 50th percentile song is going to be garbage. It'll be generic TikTok, slop, but the top
Right.
1% is just going to be amazing. So,
Right. 100%. And another thing that I've been thinking about, I mean, it's related, but people ask me oftentimes about generative UI, and it's related to music here, where do you believe that AI is going to enable everybody to hear something that's or see like a website is uniquely created on demand for them? Like the website that when I see Instagram or the app is different for me than it is for you based on, our preferences and testing. Like that's a interesting debate. I have some opinions about that and what that could look like 5, 10 years from now. But taking that same mental model of like generating on the fly from like UI and UX, to music or creative industries. Right now, when you create a song and you're a producer, you record all your tracks, you mix, so you master it, you produce that single track, you throw it out onto Spotify. You have one instance of that thing. In the tech world, when you're building an app, you A/B test, you vary, you make iterations. You can actually test what copy is going to convert people better. The music industry doesn't have something like that. You as a user take your own design taste, might be right or wrong, and you create a piece of music or art and you throw it out into the world and see how the world reacts. You don't have this feedback loop where you could distribute 10 versions of that song and dynamically make adjustments. Like in the Jay-Z example, imagine if he didn't have Rick Rubin there and he had that first version, but you could have automatic generated sort of like variations that everybody across the internet heard a
Mm,
little bit different. Maybe the guitar is a Spanish guitar versus like a Southern guitar, and like these slight
right, right.
variations, and you test. And you could see that kind of, maybe you bucket to like 1,000 different variations with AI. So like the producer just
Right.
kind of says, this is a guitar, and AI goes like, maybe let's try a different type of guitar for all these different variations, see which one works. I don't know.
No, that's a super fascinating concept. I didn't even hear, but I mean, you rarely see people musicians A/B test their songs and stuff. You like even a little bit, like for the Spanish audience stuff. So maybe that's like when a new like a Tears puts out a song, but her research group has knows that in Mexico they like a little bit of this. So maybe
Right.
you A/B test it, but
Totally.
it's interesting. It's
Interesting.
interesting. I wonder though if that will take away from the purity of the one song as well. So I'm sure there on the others, there's always the other side. The other side would be like, what happened to serendipity? What happened to just imperfection? Why do we have to hyper optimize everything? And I'm sure there'll be a pendulum towards that as well. Right? So it's super interesting.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, talking about generative stuff,
Yeah.
let's move to Genie 3.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I know you're super excited about it. So, like, what was your reaction when you? So, I guess kind of setting the stage. What is Genie 3?
Yeah. So like Genie 3 is the third generation of Google's world models. They came out, excuse me, they came out with Genie 2 a little time ago, and it pretty much was a on-demand. You might explain this better than I will. Let me try to explain it though. It's on-demand uh, world building. Maybe
Yeah, yeah.
you try to explain it
No, no, no,
better.
you're right. I mean, it just generates basically, it's not quite like a real-time video. I mean, it kind of is, but basically it generates like a world for you, like, on
Real
demand,
time,
and
like real
real time,
time too.
real time, which is insane. Like I mean, we've talked about video generation before. So anyone who's tried to generate videos and stuff, how it costly,
Right.
and the latency. And so it's kind of insane that Google can do it. With Genie 2, it was just like a very think like Doom 2 type of like simple world, like Mario type, you could like have a character, it kind of moves, and as it moves, maybe the wall comes into play. So Unity, think like Unity, Unreal Engine, etc. But with Genie 3, the
Hmm.
quality just went up way more,
Right.
where it was actually crisp 720p. So
Right.
720p real time, which is
Real
insane,
time.
I think. Yeah.
And so like I just mean like just like to sum this up for anybody that hasn't followed this, because it was kind of under the radar. I think if you're not in the space, you haven't heard about Genie 3. So for generative media, you have text to image. You could take a text prompt, generate an image from it. Everybody knows about that. You have text to video, where you take a text prompt and then you create a video from that text prompt. So maybe a cat walking across the street with the sun, and you actually see it walk. Video, 5 seconds, whatever. You have image to video, which is you have a image like a cat in the middle of a street, and you have like an island in the background or whatever, and then you just create a video from that. And so maybe the waves are moving on the island, the cat is there, it's the sun shimmering off of it. Those are kind of what people all know of. The prompt to world to real time video is just completely different paradigm, where you're not generating this static video clip. You're just really generating a world as if you are a video director that just got plopped into that world. You create, let's say, a medieval castle, and it has like torches on the side of the walls. It has this like carpet. It has like this table and a dining room. And the AI has generated this world, and you get plopped in that world as if you're playing a video game. So you can actually move forward and back and left and right. And all of that that you're seeing is being generated in real time. There's no physics engine underneath the
Right.
hood
Right.
that has explicitly like programmed like you shouldn't be able to walk through the walls. The apple that's on the table should stay on that table. And if you move around that table, that apple is going to stay there. And so it's essentially like completely upending how video games, this is the most clear just like analogy is like how video games work. Because how video
Mm.
games work today, is you a development team has a physics engine. Let's talk about just like open world, like real world games, but like you have a physics engine that says how physics on Earth in our universe work. You can't walk through walls. When you jump, you fall. The things that you put them on the table will stay on the table, and all the above, like natural physics. And that is hard coded. It is an intractable problem that is extremely difficult to actually model all physics. It's
Yeah, it's
very
impossible
computationally
to capture
expensive.
the long tail of all the things that can happen in our
Right.
physical world. So yeah.
And with Genie 3, essentially, they just trained a model on the world data and it was able to understand physics and how objects interact with each other. And so you could be put into a world now and just walk around. And in a video game space, what's so interesting about this is that, like, you have an Xbox on, like I have an Xbox over here, and you have your CPU, you have the game developers bought the physics engine. They built the logic about like, hey, if you're a knight and you're running through this castle with a sword in your hand, they have to think about like, how does that sword interact and how does it swing and how does it, do all these things. You have the narrative designers who are designing the storyline, but then you also have the programmers who have to take that narrative design and make sure that actually is converted from like a story and what the video game should feel like for the user to logic and code and
Mm.
converting that code part is about to just completely get eliminated. Now video game
Mm.
studios are going to
Right.
have a bunch of designers, storytellers. People are going to be like, hey, I want these characters to look like this. I want the
Yeah.
worlds to look like this. And you're not going to need the guys, the programmers, to take that and convert it into code. They're
Mm.
just going to be
Yeah.
able to be just the designers and the storytellers
Yeah.
because that's all you need. It's so
No,
cool.
no, it's amazing. It's insane. I will say I do feel like that there is still need for code because like I feel like we're not at a point that you can generate the same because with a game at least like you want to generate the same world like you can't have a
Right.
castle that's
Totally.
even just small details like if you have a castle that's gray but then it's
Right.
light brown the next time you're like so I feel like maybe there's some hybrid thing where you generate the pixels and stuff but then you maybe generate the code to generate it so the next time it's more deterministic so I feel like there's a because of the deterministic aspect of things we'll probably have some sort of a hybrid approach and I wonder if it's used as a initial boilerplate that expedites the process to generate these worlds but then they're like all right like we have the world now we have the characters how do we make sure we always have the sword we always have the
Right.
castle etc so it'll be
Totally.
super interesting to see how that works
And
yeah
I have a thesis around this too, is because in most cases, I'd kind of like agree with you that you need to translate into code. I think that the AI accelerates that development process. But in video games specifically, there's narrative designers who design the storyline. That storyline like it's a lot of thought and logic, and that's like the core of the game, and that storyline should not be different for everybody. You need to have this one character, he needs to have this personality, you have these other characters in the world, and then you need to go through this journey towards some endpoint which like the development studio wants that story to be, because that's like what they're paid to do, is like creating a great story. But then to make that world come alive, there's so many things that don't necessarily need to be consistent from player to player. Like the number, let's say, think about you're running through a field and you're playing Zelda, and the number of trees on that one field. There's a designer out there that's like, oh, I'm putting a tree here, I'm putting a tree here, putting a tree there. The grass is going to look this way. Nobody
mm-hmm,
cares about those. Those are like these elements that make the world feel real. But if I have
mm-hmm,
7 trees and your game is generated with 8 trees, it's not going to matter. It doesn't like,
mm,
and so I think you have that element, but also for the consistency part, I could see like this new type of paradigm where you create a canvas that you have images. You go text to image. And so let's say in the same like castle example, you prompt kind of a castle on a hill and you pretty much as the narrative designer generate multiple images and you place them in this virtual world. And so you have Genie 3, which is generating the world, but it also has coordinate locations of where images should live in that world. And so today, Genie 3, it has relativity, like it knows how far that wall is from that player and it knows if your hand touches it, but
Mm,
there's no way to influence that beyond that prompt. But imagine if Genie 3 had some idea about coordinate location where you could
mm,
actually drop in, like, hey, at this one point on that world, I need a castle that looks like this. And here are the 5 images. And so you have the consistency where it's like, this is the image
I
as
see
the
what you're saying.
base, and then you have a world that can be built around it. Maybe on that field with Zelda, here's the trees and how they should look. Let me put a tree on this location, this location, this location. Genie 3, you fill in the details. I don't want to have to make a 3D model about like how each little leaf looks, but like
Mm,
here's the image and just here's all the images. And I
mm.
don't know. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking like video design and CGI for movies could
Yeah.
look like.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it'll come to, there'll be stuff that we don't care if there's 7 trees and 8 trees, but
Right,
the appearance of the character we probably do
right,
care about, and we want
for
to make
sure.
sure that he looks exactly the same every time. So yeah, you're
Mhm.
probably right. I think I agree with your approach, but they might like designers might spend a lot of time making the critical static assets, but then they'll drop those assets in the world and be like, yeah, the rest of the stuff can be a little more flow, there can be a confidence interval around it, and we got the critical elements and then the storyline. As long as we get that tight, everything else
Right.
can flow. And it could also be in some games I imagine it'll like a Minesweeper type, it'll be a feature, not a bug, where yeah, it was different. Like the tree became like a different species or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
discovered treasure in it or something. So it's super interesting.
Totally.
I haven't played games in such a long time, but I was super into it. For me, the world building aspect and the leveling up aspect was so interesting, and I feel like
Mhm.
there'll be so many cool aspects of it. I actually, just a quick tangent. I'm watching this. I know. I used to watch a lot of anime. I don't do as much, but I still like. I have a soft spot for it. And I was in Paris, and I met this guy who was super into anime, and I was like, dude, there are no good animes anymore. And he was like, no, you gotta watch it. So he gave me a couple of recommendations, and one of them was Solo Leveling. I don't know if you've heard of this one. So I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And it's a super cool anime. It's basically a world where you have level. So you're a hunter and there's a dimension and you have to beat monsters. So very like game, but it's real life where
Mhm.
there's like monsters and they have they appear in dungeons, and there's a dungeon monster, and the only way to close the dungeon is to defeat the boss. And so
Right.
there are these ranks of these people, and then this guy has the ability, like, I'm not gonna get a spoiler, but he was like the lowest of the low, and somehow he gets the ability to level up, which is not allowed in this world. Like you're
Mhm.
supposed to just have your rank. And so he starts getting stronger. And so he gets these quests where he's like, oh, if I do 100 push-ups, I get stronger, which is like, well, yeah, but it's like very metric based. So he's like, if I do 100
Right.
push-ups, my strength goes up by like a little bit. And
Right.
so, which is interesting because I mean, I feel like if you gamify life like that, if he had metrics, I feel like people would be super into it. Like, oh,
Mhm.
if I read a book, my intelligence goes up a bit. So, it
Right.
incentivizes you. So it's a super cool anime, and I wonder if we can like take that concept and we'll build these worlds where you're like, oh, I'm gonna learn math. You know, I go through calculus 101, and I get a meter or whatever, like I get awards
Right.
and stuff like that. So
Right.
there's so much, I think, scope for gamifying a lot of this stuff. So, anyways, check out
That,
Solo
that
Leveling, anyone who's interested in anime. It's super cool.
yeah. Gamification of life is
Yeah.
that's why capitalism is a great economic model where you've kind of gamified with there's problems with it too, but it's the best thing that we've discovered where you try to achieve and level up in society and have the ability to move up and down, and whether it's through like strength, intelligence, wealth,
Right.
these things
Yeah.
where you actually have the mobility, unlike the caste systems and like the systems of the past where you just couldn't. So it's cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, having some sort of a measure to give you feedback about how you're doing, I think it's so key,
Hmm.
we talk
For
about
sure.
like for startups or for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Genie 3 is super interesting. I guess unfortunately, one thing with Google with these programs, they never release it to the public. So I don't know if you'll get it. But somebody was saying like Imagen, like last year they released Imagen, there was research preview, and they were like, oh, it's too
Hmm.
dangerous. And now we have Imagen 4 via API.
Right.
So who
Right.
knows? Maybe Genie 4, we'll get access to.
Totally.
Totally, I hope so. I'm not because I know there was an Oasis that you could play too, which is like a Minecraft version that was like GDT level, but it's like
Really? Oh,
Minecraft generated on
nice.
like real time, and you could just actually play it on your browser. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It looked like
Yeah.
you were like on drugs playing it. It was
That's
like the
amazing. Yeah.
world kind of
Yeah,
was
and
nuts.
we've only touched on the gaming aspect, but I think there's a lot of other economics. So people talk the I think one of
Right.
the big
Totally.
things I think is super interesting is like simulating robotics. I think one of the big problems in robotics has been the lack of data to
Right.
actually train robots because there's only so many factory hours you can record and stuff. And so one of the things be like Jim Fang and stuff, people in this space have said like if we can simulate robotic factory interactions and train robots in a simulated world and then take millions of years of training and speed run that, and then you'll actually be able to train robots. Because if you think about us human beings, it took us millions of years to learn how to walk and crawl. Like this is why, if you look at from an evolutionary standpoint, this is why we've a robot ChatGPT writing Shakespeare came before a robot learning to walk properly, because we've used our brains, our higher functions for the last 100,000 years, but it took us 2 million years to learn to walk. And so
Right.
from that point, it makes sense that, that's like the last boss. But if we
Totally.
can synthetically generate the data in these worlds, we can speed run that and get drones, get robots, humanoids, robots and stuff in the factories doing the labor for us, which I think if that happens, that's like going to be a key economic driver, because that way you can create amazing goods for basically dirt cheap.
Yeah, and this is like one of the NVIDIA's big value props on the
Yeah.
Omniverse type of
Right.
the simulated worlds where they're creating digital twins. Like digital twins in general just could be so cool for both planning purposes, like digital optimization of factories, of cities, of the moon bases, all of like these really cool things that you want to be able to optimize. Like when you build a factory today, you get an architect and you get some engineers together, like, how are we going to build out our assembly line? And you make a best guess decision. And those decisions are very permanent. And you're not going to be able to iterate on the failures of, your assembly line until one, you either take down that assembly line and have some downtime, understanding where the bottlenecks could be in that pipeline of like
Mhm.
actual development, or until you build a new factory. And like that's expensive from like economics point of view. But if you could
Right.
simulate, hey, we want to create X number of cars or robots or houses in a factory, like how can we simulate that and
Right.
understand physics? And that could also be procedurally done too. I think you could do like a hybrid approach where it's like some procedurally physics, like we can do today, video games and put a robot into a pretty good physics engine and like simulate, but it's hard to create the accurate environments
Yeah.
and all the nuances around the
Super,
edges.
super fascinating. If you take that to your logical code, this is where I put my tinfoil at. It basically gets you a simulation hypothesis, right? We
Right.
we basically end up, maybe our world is like running, a Genie 6 or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
We're just like characters in it. So who knows?
No, it's wild. And I know we had some of the video stuff on here too, but we're also at 45. So, I mean,
Yeah, we can talk about the video stuff, I guess, like next week. I kind of leaving a teaser. I guess the only thing I'll
Yeah.
say is like video is having its moment, right? It's been coming for a while, but we're finally getting videos, like 5-second videos being generated at the basically at the price of an image. With the one release, their 14 billion parameter model, which was really good, and it was costing um 10 to 15 cents to create one video, and then somebody distilled that to a 5 billion parameter model, which costs 0.025 like dollars for a 5-second 540p video,
Right.
which and 720p, like slightly more, like 0.03 or zero point zero 0.04, which is insane. I mean, think
Totally.
about it. Like you're basically generating a 5-second video basically in a 5-second video, I think was in 5 seconds. So basically real time and costing you cents.
Hmm.
And so if Genie 3 might not be there, but you can like create basically a movie, yeah, 2-hour movie, basically for a handful of dollars. Now it won't be a good movie probably, but hey, I mean, you can do it and it's only going to get better, right? So I don't know. I think it'll be we're living through an insane period where I genuinely believe, I think within a year or two, we're gonna be able to create Netflix shows and movies, like from our laptop, not from our laptops, but using these APIs and stuff,
Right.
and
Right.
think about that. Like when I can just like generate my own anime show, you can generate your own movie. I think that's been like a dream of mine for a number of years now. So yeah,
Totally.
very
So it's
exciting.
super exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, episode 8 of Creative Flux. Thanks
Yeah.
everybody for joining. Below, we'll chat next week and talk a little bit more about video. So.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys. Bye.